A retired teacher discovered break-ins at her beach condo. Hidden cameras revealed the HOA president using her property without permission. When confronted during the General Assembly, dark secrets emerged, a scheme to devalue the condo complex and force elderly residents to sell their properties. This is a story of courage, justice, and community unity that will show the power of one determined person. Get ready to be moved. Leave a like, subscribe, and comment where you're watching from. Have you ever heard that old saying that retirement is synonymous with peace and quiet? Well, that might just be the biggest lie ever told on the face of the earth. Let me tell you how my beach condo, bought with the sweat of 35 years teaching ill-mannered teenagers how to diagram sentences, turned into the setting of a soap opera, mixed with a spy movie. It was supposed to be simple, you know. After decades of correcting essays with illegible handwriting, dealing with parents who thought their kids were misunderstood little geniuses, I finally got what I wanted. My little place at the beach. It wasn't anything extraordinary, but it was mine. A refuge in the sea breeze condos, a pretty name that hid a board of residents as toxic as the faculty lounge at the school where I worked. When winter arrived, I decided my old bones deserved the comfort of my apartment back in the HOA city. I tidied everything up perfectly, as only a retired English teacher knows how. Every cushion in its place, every bottle untouched, every surface impeccably clean. I closed the door with that lovely feeling that I'd return in a few months to find everything exactly as I left it. Oh, the innocence of me, good heavens. When I returned 3 months later, something was wrong. You know that feeling? Like when you sensed a student had cheated on a test, but you didn't know exactly how yet. That's how it was. The vase by the entrance was 2 inches out of place. Must have been the cleaning lady, I thought, trying to calm my retired teacher paranoia. But then I noticed the sofa pillow had different indentations and a half-empty bottle of wine when I was absolutely certain I had left them all sealed. Someone had been in my house, and it wasn't Santa Claus. Look, I may have gray hair and knees that creak like rusty hinges when I climb stairs, but I spent decades catching students red-handed. The one who said the dog ate his homework, the other who swore he emailed it, but it must have gone to spam. The girl who invented illnesses with names that don't even exist in the medical dictionary. I always caught them all, and now someone thought they could play me for a fool. How cute, how naive. I could have done the obvious. Complain to the management, change the locks, install a loud alarm. But darlings, when you spend your whole life teaching literature, you learn a thing or two about character development and narrative construction. And I wanted to see this story unfold to the very last chapter. So I did what any 68-year-old woman would do. I turned my home into a surveillance center worthy of the FBI. But I didn't install just any cheap little system. Oh no. I went straight to a specialist and explained my situation. The young man at the store, who looked young enough to be my grandson, glanced at me as if I'd just told him I'd seen a unicorn on the beach. "Ma'am, are you sure someone broke in? Wasn't it just your imagination?" he asked with that typical patronizing tone young people reserve for us, the elderly. I took a deep breath and smiled, the kind of smile I gave just before sending a student to the principal's office. My dear boy, I spent 35 years identifying lies from teenagers. I know when something is wrong in my own house. Now, are you going to sell me the best camera system you have, or should I go see your competitor? The system I installed wasn't just good, it was exceptional. Discrete cameras, motion-activated, with night vision and the crown jewel, connected directly to the cell phone of the local police chief, a former student who, by some miracle, still remembered my sentence diagramming lessons fondly. When I called him explaining the situation, Rick, now Chief Foster, imagined that, didn't hesitate. "Mrs. Helen, you always knew when we were up to no good. If you say something's wrong, I believe you." And so began my 6-month saga that would transform my peaceful seaside retirement into an investigative reality show. The first month was observation. I started noticing a pattern. The visits always happened after the HOA meetings. Meetings I attended religiously, noting every detail, while our HOA president, Bernice, conducted everything with the rigidity of a drill sergeant. Bernice was the type of woman who wore tweed suits even in the sweltering summer heat and had hair so immobile it looked like plastic. Her motto, "Rules are made to be followed," which apparently didn't apply to the minor detail of trespassing on private property. It was during the annual fish fry, that celebration everyone swears is a century-old tradition but was actually invented to attract tourists 10 years ago, that I got my first confirmation. While everyone was on the beach, pretending to know how to cook fish on the sand, spoiler alert, most only knew how to drink margaritas, I received a notification on my phone. Motion detected in the living room. I discreetly slipped away from the crowd, found a quiet spot behind the local craft stall, and opened the app. I almost dropped my phone in the sand. It wasn't just Bernice, it was a group. 5 people to be exact, all from the HOA board, comfortably settled in my living room, drinking my wine, using my glasses. "Look how nice it is in here," one of them, the treasurer I believe, was saying as she ran her hand over my sofa. "The old lady has good taste." "The old lady? I'm 68 for heaven's sake, not 108. And my name is Helen, Dr. Helen to them, actually." I took a deep breath and counted to 10. No, better make it 100. The plan wasn't to confront them immediately. I wanted to understand what was happening. Why my house? Why after the meetings? What were they looking for or discussing that couldn't be said in the HOA meeting room? A week later, the answer came. The footage showed something even more disturbing. Bernice was holding secret meetings in my living room. The topic? A small increase in the HOA fees for urgent structural improvements. Improvements that no one had ever seen, by the way. "We can raise it by 30%, Bernice said, comfortably seated in my armchair, sipping my jasmine tea. "These retirees don't understand inflation anyway. We'll say it's to renovate the facade, but use it for the new security system for the penthouse area." The penthouse area where, coincidentally, Bernice had recently bought a unit. What a fascinating coincidence, wasn't it? The second month was the hardest. Trying to act normal when you know you're being deceived is an art that requires Zen-like patience. And I, my dears, have never been known for my patience. At the next HOA meeting, when Bernice announced the inevitable and urgent 30% increase, I had to bite my tongue so hard I nearly drew blood. "Any questions, Mrs. Helen?" she asked, with that smile as fake as a $3 bill when she noticed my suspicious gaze. "No, Bernice, I'm just admiring your dedication to the community. It must be exhausting taking care of so many details." And then I couldn't resist, especially after hours. She frowned for a second but quickly returned to her expression of impeccable efficiency. "The well-being of the residents is my priority." "Of course it is, dear. That's why you use my sofa like your private office." It was during the summer lantern launch, another tradition invented 5 years ago by the local tourism board, that I made my second major discovery. While we were all on the beach, placing candles in little paper boats, which, let's be honest, are a hazard to marine life, I received another motion alert. This time, Bernice was alone. And she wasn't just sitting comfortably in my living room. She was rummaging through my personal documents, the ones I kept in the desk drawer in the guest room. The drawer I always kept locked. The drawer that was now open. My heart pounded. It was one thing to use my house for clandestine meetings, quite another to rifle through my personal papers. What was she looking for? My bank statements, deeds, my will? That night I couldn't sleep. The thought that someone was investigating my personal life while I innocently lit lanterns on the beach gave me chills. The next day, I reviewed all. My documents. Nothing seemed missing, but several folders were out of order. And then I realized my documents regarding the purchase of the condo, including the original property appraisal, were in a different order. The third month brought a new element to the plot. A strong storm surge partially isolated the condo complex, with the access road partly blocked by a mudslide. While residents organized to clear the common area, I found something curious. Financial records from the HOA, apparently left in the common area after a storm damaged the administration office. How convenient, right? A storm that affected only that specific room without damaging anything else in the building. I'd believe in Santa Claus before I believed that. Taking advantage of no one looking, I quickly glanced at the documents, and there they were. Suspicious financial transactions, transfers to companies with generic names, receipts for services, never rendered. The mystery of the constantly rising fees with no visible improvements was beginning to make sense. I discreetly photographed everything and sent it to Rick, my former student, the police chief. This is serious, Mrs. Helen. Looks like embezzlement. Keep gathering evidence, but be careful. People like this can be dangerous when cornered. Dangerous? Please. I faced classrooms full of teenagers during the last period on Friday for decades. Bernice, in her tweed suit, didn't scare. Oh, the innocence of me again. In the 4th month, during the traditional beach bash, which surprisingly was a genuine local tradition, I had the opportunity to chat with other owners. Using the excuse of offering margaritas, my specialty, modesty aside, I circulated among the neighbors, especially the older ones, who, like me, probably saved their whole lives for their little spot on the beach. Have you ever noticed anything strange in your homes when you come back from a trip? I casually asked Mrs. Carmen, a retired banker who always wore extravagant hats. She nearly choked on her margarita. How did you know? I thought I was going crazy. Last month I came back from visiting family up north and I was sure someone had moved my knickknacks around and the level in my late husband's whiskey bottle was lower. It wasn't just me. There were several of us. One by one, the older residents confessed to small changes, details that anyone less observant would ignore. A slightly damp towel, a book in a different position, a perfume bottle emptier than expected. We were being systematically targeted. But why? The answer came unexpectedly. That same night, while everyone was dancing at the bash, or trying to, in the case of older folks like me who looked more like we were having a small rhythmic seizure, I received another alert. Bernice again, but this time she wasn't alone. She was with a man I didn't initially recognize. I zoomed in. It was Maurice Preston, a well-known local real estate agent, famous for his aggressive and not always ethical deals. What was he doing? In my house with Bernice. The plan is working perfectly, Bernice was saying, comfortably seated on my sofa. We've already raised the fees by 40% in 6 months. The seniors are starting to complain they can't keep up with the costs. Excellent, replied Maurice, helping himself to my wine. At least he had good taste. It was a Cabernet Sauvignon I was saving for a special occasion. Red Coast Hotels is very interested in the land. If we can get 5 more owners to sell, by the end of the year, we'll have enough units to start demolition and begin construction of the resort. My blood ran cold, so that was it. They were pressuring the older owners to sell by artificially inflating the condo costs and probably using the break-ins to find out who was most financially vulnerable. I needed more proof, more details. Luckily, my grandson Peter, a 22-year-old tech whiz, came to visit during the blessing of the fleet holiday. Yes, also invented a few years ago, but lovely nonetheless. In minutes, he upgraded my surveillance system, including better audio, quality and more precise alerts. Grandma, this is serious. We're talking criminal conspiracy, breaking and entering, invasion of privacy and likely fraud, he said. With that seriousness only young people can muster when explaining technology to older folks. You should be on a Caribbean cruise, not playing detective. Peter, dear, I replied while baking butter cookies, which he still loved as much as when he was 8. When you get to my age, you'll understand that life needs a little excitement now and then. Besides, nobody messes with my house, nobody. With the enhanced system, the evidence piled up quickly. Bernice didn't just break into our homes, she used personal information obtained to psychologically pressure residents. She knew who had health problems, who was struggling financially, who had heirs uninterested in the property, and she used all of it in her approaches. Only one detail was missing, proving she was directly linked to the realtors and Red Coast Hotels. And that proof came in the 5th month unexpectedly. Laura, the HOA secretary, a timid young woman who always looked scared when Bernice entered the room, approached me after a meeting. Glancing nervously around like she was in a bad spy movie, she whispered, "Mrs. Helen, I need to talk to you privately." We met on the beach far from the condo's listening ears. Laura was visibly nervous, her hands trembling as she held the coffee I bought to calm her down. "I know about the break-ins," she finally said. "Bernice makes me copy everyone's keys. She said it's for emergencies, but I know what she does. And there's more. She gets a commission from Red Coast for every unit sold. 10%. Bingo. The missing piece. Why are you telling me this now, Laura?" She lowered her eyes. "Because yesterday she asked me to falsify water damage reports for your unit. She wants to force you to sell, saying your place has serious structural problems. that will cost a fortune to fix, and I can't be part of this anymore. My mother is your age. How could I look at her knowing I helped scam people like you? I wanted to hug that girl. Finally, an ally within the system. With Laura, I gained access to even more documents. Emails between Bernice and Red. Coast lists of priority owners to pressure. I was second, apparently labeled stubborn yet vulnerable. Vulnerable, huh? Personalized approach strategies for each one. The perfect storm formed during the traditional local arts and crafts fair, where I displayed my shell sculptures. I was proud of them, you know. I had learned the technique from Mr. Jenkins, a retired fisherman who turned sea debris into small works of art. It was my new hobby, something I never imagined I'd enjoy, but which now gave me immense pleasure. I was explaining the shell selection process to a tourist when I saw Bernice approaching. Her fake smile could light up a football stadium. "Helen dear, what wonderful work," she said, picking up one of my sculptures as if she had the right. "I always knew you had artistic talent. It matches your delicate personality." I smiled, back just as falsely. "Thank you, Bernice, always so kind." "Actually," she lowered her voice confidentially, "I came to talk about something important, privately." We moved a little away from the booth. I kept my smile, but my heart raced. Was this it? "Helen, as a friend, I need to share a concern. We received the report from the latest structural inspection of the complex, and your unit, well, it's not good news." "Oh?" I replied, managing my best concerned expression. "What happened?" "Serious water intrusion in the foundation. The kind of problem that only gets worse over time and could compromise not just your unit, but the neighboring ones too." She sighed heavily, as if the weight of the world was on her shoulders. "The repairs will cost around $100,000. I almost choked. That was more than I had paid for the entire place 10 years ago. "My goodness," I murmured, trying to sound devastated. "I don't have that kind of money readily available." Bernice's smile widened slightly, predatory. I imagined. "That's why I came to talk. I have a realtor friend who's representing a client interested in the complex. He could make an offer on your unit, even with the problems. It wouldn't be market value, of course, but it would save you from this structural nightmare." "And what would that offer be?" I asked, feigning interest. "Considering the issues, about 60% of the market value. Still a good deal, considering you wouldn't have to invest in the repairs." I took a deep breath. It was hard to keep my composure when someone was so blatantly trying to rob you. "I'll think about it," I replied vaguely. "Do you have the inspection report? I'd like to show it to my nephew. He's an engineer." Bernice's smile faltered for an instant. "Of course I can arrange a copy, but it's quite technical, you know. Maybe it's better if we talk to the realtor. First, he can better explain the implications." "Still, I'd like the report. After all, we're talking about my home." "Certainly," she replied, but her eyes said something else. "I'll send it to you tomorrow." Needless to say, no report arrived the next day, nor the day after, nor the following week. What did arrive was a series of unpleasant coincidences. My mailbox was vandalized. I received notices for HOA violations. I never committed. Apparently my garden didn't meet the complex's aesthetic standards. And the pinnacle, my water supply was cut off for emergency maintenance that curiously only affected my unit. The pressure was mounting. Bernice thought she was cornering me, forcing me to sell. Little did she know that each new action only provided more evidence for what was becoming a solid case against her and her cronies. During preparations for the annual garden contest, an event I usually loved participating in, my sunflowers had already won honorable mention twice, I received a surprise visit from the audit committee chair, Mr. Arnold, a generally pleasant gentleman who now looked uncomfortable in his own skin. "Mrs. Helen, I regret to inform you that the committee has identified irregular use of common water for your private garden. The fine is $1,000. "Excuse me," I almost shouted. "I've used the same amount of water for years. I even have a rainwater harvesting system." He avoided my gaze. "The readings indicate excessive use. I'm sorry." That night, I installed an additional camera specifically aimed at the water meter. What did it record in the early hours of the morning? The maintenance guy, clearly following orders, tampering with my consumption records. It was enough, more than enough. In the 6th month, Everything was ready for the grand finale. With the help of Laura, other affected residents, my tech-savvy grandson, and of course Chief Rick, we devised a meticulous plan. The semi-annual General Assembly was approaching. Traditionally held in the town square with its historic gazebo, it was an event that attracted not only residents, but also curious onlookers and local officials. The perfect stage. I arrived, early, wearing my best outfit, that navy blue suit I reserve for graduations and weddings. Bernice was already there, impeccable as always, distributing fake smiles and firm handshakes. When she saw me, she waved with false cordiality. I returned the gesture, mentally savoring what was to come. The meeting started promptly at 7 p. Monsieur Bernice opened the proceedings with her usual speech about protecting our property values and maintaining our standard of excellence. The irony was almost palpable. When it came time for new business, I asked for the floor. Bernice hesitated visibly before granting it. "Good evening, everyone," I began, my voice firm, the one I used for decades to control classrooms. "I'd like to share something important with you, something that affects every owner in this complex." I paused dramatically. Years of teaching literature taught me the value of good narrative timing. For the past 6 months, I have been gathering evidence of a systematic scheme involving property invasion, information manipulation, and coercion to force owners to sell their units below market value. A murmur went through the assembly. Bernice stood up, her face a mask of indignation. "Mrs. Helen, those are extremely serious and completely baseless accusations. I suggest you retract them immediately or face legal consequences." I smiled. The kind of smile I gave before handing back a test with a 0 for cheating. "Baseless? I have proof, Bernice, lots of proof." I gave a signal and my grandson Peter connected his laptop to the projector we had discreetly set up. On the white wall of the gazebo, images appeared that silenced the crowd. Bernice and her accomplices entering various homes of absent residents. Bernice rummaging through personal documents. Bernice with the realtor Morris explicitly discussing the plan to devalue the condo complex. "And there's more," I continued, as Peter showed financial documents, emails, and the list of priority targets. Falsification of documents, tampering with meters, systematic harassment of elderly owners. The silence was deafening. Bernice, for the first time since I'd known her, seemed genuinely speechless. Her face alternated between ghost white and furious red. This is fabricated," she finally managed to say, her voice trembling. "Invasion of privacy, I'll sue all of you." "Interesting you mention invasion of privacy," replied Chief Rick, who had been observing discreetly from the back of the square. Now he walked calmly towards the center of the meeting. "Because that's exactly what you're being accused of, along with criminal conspiracy, fraud, document forgery." The assembly erupted in an uproar. Residents who previously seemed timid now spoke up, sharing their own experiences, confirming the pattern. Laura, trembling but brave, handed over a folder with even more documents. "I was forced," she cried. "She threatened to harm my mother if I didn't cooperate." The night was long. Bernice was taken in for questioning, along with her main accomplices. The vote for her removal was unanimous, something unprecedented in the history of the Condo Association, where we usually couldn't even get unanimity on the color of the trash cans. In the following weeks, the dust slowly settled. A new HOA president was elected, Mr. Augusto, a retired Federal Reserve employee who promised full transparency in the finances. The scheme with Red Coast Hotels was dismantled, the company fined, and the forced contracts were reviewed. And me? Well, I could finally go back to enjoying my beach condo in peace. My camera system is still active, of course. Old habits die hard. But now it just serves for me to monitor the garden flowers when I'm back in the city. At the annual Fisherman's Festival, this one, a legitimately century-old tradition, I was surprised with an honor. "To Mrs. Helen," the mayor said, raising a glass, "who showed us that age is just a number when it comes to fighting for what's right." I confess I teared up a little. Not much, because I've never been one for public displays of emotion, but enough to smudge the mascara I had carefully applied for the occasion. The experience transformed me in ways I never imagined. I discovered an inner strength I didn't know I possessed. I made new friends, real ones this time. And, ironically, I found a new passion. I'm now writing a series of mystery novels. The first volume, The Malicious Manager, already has a publishing contract. Do you think I came out losing in this story? How disappointing. Never underestimate a retired teacher with free time, a mind sharpened by decades of grading papers, and, most importantly, strategically placed high-definition cameras. Oh, and if by chance you're an HOA president or board member somewhere out there, a piece of advice: respect your residents' privacy, especially if they're retired teachers. You never know when they might be recording.